Welcome to another episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series. We've got another BioCup themed episode today, but even still, it kind of just works as its own little standalone episode. Today we're going to be covering kind of monsters, because most of these are pretty much monster themed, also kind of bug themed, but we can kind of group that together. Not that all bugs are monsters, but you know, for the sake of the theme, it works well. But also food, which is a theme that people have asked for ages, but there's just not a lot of food-related mocks out there, so it's really awesome that the BioCup did a food-related theme, so we've got a little double feature today, which is very nice. So, without further ado, let's dive into some food/monster-themed mocks. The very first one we've got today is by Velocijackdaw, and this is Picnic Raider. And this is a fun take on the theme, the idea of, you know, just like bugs or mosquitoes or flies or whatever, just disturbing you if you're having a picnic outdoors. The idea of like taking that but running with it and expanding it even further and having these bugs be kaiju sized, essentially, just being massive and, you know, here to really mess up your picnic. I think that's a really clever take on the theme here. And you know, first off, we'll take a look at the actual food element of this, which is the really nice little picnic blanket and little bits of food there. Of course, the bulk of those appear to be the typical Lego food elements, which there's a bunch of them out there. And honestly, to some degree, I feel like a lot of them are very to scale with a lot of Bionicle stuff, like the chicken legs, the sausages, that sort of stuff. Kind of works well for your more sort of typical size of a Bionicle. So honestly, if you want to have your Bionicle mocks be paired with some type of food, just use some of those pieces. They work really well. The picnic blanket idea is also really clever, just using a typical 8x8 Lego plate there, and just putting the net piece over the top there. Works pretty well. Looks like a picnic blanket. We actually have another picnic blanket design a little later in the episode, so we'll see some more soon. But I think this one works pretty well and looks pretty good, to be totally honest with you. I also quite enjoy the shish kebab, I don't know, spear or weapon that they're holding here. Really, really fun and creative idea. You know, it kind of looks like they just sort of picked it up and are using it as a weapon, but I like the fact that, I don't know, it also just is a sort of, I don't know, I guess you could kind of pass it as some sort of ceremonial weapon, but it is just a, you know, enlarged shish kebab piece of food that he's using as a trident or a staff of sorts, and that's a really clever idea. It's not a trident at all, it's a spear, but you know what I mean. I think that's a genius way of not only sort of approaching the theme and the general concept of this mock, but just works really well as a good old weapon, and looks exactly like you would see a kebab of sorts. So yeah, really nicely done. Let's take a look at the actual kind of bug that is the Picnic Raider here specifically. I love his bug butt. Just the way that he's layered some of those larger kind of like thigh armor pieces that came on a bunch of the Star Wars Ultra Build sets. Just the way that they are sort of spammed in that regard, and that sort of slight angle to them really does look like the carapace or sort of texture that you would see on a bug, and also forms a very nice sort of shape to it as well that looks quite realistic. And then the very tip at the bottom there, using some system pieces to kind of round it off a little bit and give it a little bit of a stinger as well. Just a really nice, solid looking design. I also quite like the blue and the black color scheme here. I think it's just, in general, quite fitting, and, you know, there is kind of a slight sort of sinister element to this, I guess, especially using the term like Raider and stuff like that. So I think the kind of, you know, dark blue and black does have that sort of, I don't know, kind of slightly sinister quality to it, but also not like evil overlord who's about to kill you or something. It just, I don't know, it paints the bug in a sort of slightly more, you know, villainous way, but not too much. I don't know, I think it's a very fitting color scheme that works with kind of communicating the message that this mock is trying to communicate. Because, you know, as nice as it is to just put random colors into a mock, if you can have it have some meaning, that's always good. And I think there's a sort of very subtle meaning in the color scheme here, which is quite nice. Something else that's quite nice is, the wing design here. Just using those larger black Technic panel pieces like that. They're always quite useful, versatile pieces, and they work pretty well as the wings here. So yeah, pretty solid design, and you know, those come in a variety of different sizes too. So if you wanted to do a similar wing design, there's a lot of different variants that you could really play around with there as well. But I think probably my favorite detail on this mock here is the general head design. The actual little antennas kind of poking out of the skull spider head there. Really nice, using those Exoforce robot finger pieces and using those paintbrush pieces as well, just to give it that sort of nice little curve to that antenna there. Looks really realistic and really cool. But also, yeah, like I said, the skull spider head there works beautifully to kind of give a sort of general shape or kind of almost sort of like armament to the top of the head there. And then again, putting it on the torso and the knees there. Just nice to kind of repeat that piece in multiple ways. And a little bit of part spamming there is always a good thing, just to add a little bit of consistency throughout the mock. And it's also just a really nice, helpful piece, that Skull Spider head, and has a lot of connection points on it that you can really play with, which is, I think, pretty awesome. And the little sort of, I don't know, pincers, little teeth, whatever you would call those on a bug. I'm not super familiar with my bug anatomy, I apologize. But that sort of like, almost like helmet horn piece that you found on some Ninjago sets and different things. That also works really well there too. And the big red eyes that really stand out. I think it's just a really solid looking bug head design there. Really, really solid, and overall just a fantastic looking mock. So well done, good sir. I wish you luck in the battles to come with BioCup. Alex Mertens is building this next mock here, and this is Turbo Chef 9000. This one I saw pretty early on Instagram, and it really did grab me, and I was like, thank God it's a BioCup mock. I can definitely cover it soon. Really, really like this. This is awesome. The idea of... let me read the description, because I think it sums up the mock well. It says here, the lunch rush has begun at your local fast food chain. Make paying a human a living wage a thing of the past with this latest Turbo Chef TM model. Fueled by corporate greed, Turbo Chef 9000 will keep your drive-through times down and deliver excellent customer service with the biggest of smiles. That's pretty cool. I like that. And I like the idea, too, of, kind of playing off the idea of, corporate greed, like he said. And, the sort of jokes of it being like, people just like eating money because that's how like money hungry they are, that sort of stuff. I love that take on this theme for food, that, it is a fast food robot, so it also hits it in that regard too, and the fact that it probably does actually also eat food, it all kind of makes sense. I think it's really fitting and really cool, and a very, very unique take on this theme, and probably my favorite mock in this round of the BioCup, I would say. Really do like this one. I love the general face design, just the teeth and the tongue, the fact that it does look almost sort of, monster-like and demonic in that way. It really does play off the greed element. You often see that if people sort of personify greed in some way, that it is this sort of more, hungry, evil kind of demon thing. So quite fitting in that regard. But some of the pieces that he's used here, which I think is actually quite impressive, because this is kind of a semi-useless piece, at least the way I look at it sometimes. It's a piece I've almost never used, in mocks at least, is this turbine piece, which you can see being used kind of on the bulk of the torso, even down to the bottom, and also on the head. It takes up quite a large part of this mock, actually. It's this Exoforce turbine piece that came on a variety of different Exoforce sets. It also came in blue, but it's mainly this sort of marbled silver and black. The blue one was also that sort of marbled silver as well. It's a cool looking piece. I think it looks very nice, but it is quite large and kind of almost cumbersome, and you don't really see it being used all that much, to be totally honest with you. So I think it's great to see it being used here, and also so great to be seeing it used more as a sort of structural element and less of a a turbine detail of some kind, because that's obviously what it's intended for. It's nice to seeing it being used in a very different way. So certainly a very nice part use there, I would argue. And I also like the fact that if you do kind of catch some of those more sort of turbine-like details, it kind of just works as other sort of like robotic kind of details and things. Like, I'm sure there are some wind turbines or weird things inside this mock. It kind of actually works on multiple levels there, and so I think in that sense it is a really, really nice part use. So great to see that being used, because I really can't think of another mock I've seen that's used those, especially this well. So that's awesome. Some other awesome stuff on this is just the plethora of wires throughout this, and the fact that they're in different colors too really does give it that mechanical flair. Whether it's using some quite recent sort of very kind of flexible kind of tubing elements that you've seen on some like Friends sets. They've been in some Jurassic Park sets. They've even been on like pirate ships and things. These very sort of thin silver pieces which really kind of wrap around different things there. So they're quite thin in that regard, or just general kind of flex tubing, or maybe even some of the pneumatic tubing, or even just some like black Technic pins and things like that. Really does give it that mechanical texture and looks awesome. And great to see how it all sort of connects around, and it really creates a very unique and awesome look. I adore that. I also like the choice, and maybe this is just because that's all that Alex had lying around, but I like the choice to make the treads dark brown instead of like black or grey, which, those treads also come in those colours. Again, might not have been a deliberate choice, but I like the fact that to some degree that could be like kind of dirt and grime from wherever these fast food chains are that's just kind of been picked up in the kitchen or whatever. It may not be that, but that's what I see, and I really do enjoy and quite like that as well. Also, the fact that on the treads there's that little like lemonade sticker, all these different buttons and things, and kind of what looks like an oven that's sort of pumping out the food there. Yeah, that's also just really genius and really clever. Honestly, there's just a lot to love about this mark. I think it's a very creative concept, really awesome different part usages and techniques and things all throughout it. It's I think it really stands out. It's really cool. Also, the fact that it has heaps of eyes for the head, I think that's just a really clever, creative, like kind of character to design there. I like that. It's really cool. So yeah, phenomenal work, Alex. I really do like what you've built there. Let's move on to the next mock. This is a mock by BD, and this is The Picnic. So yeah, this one's really cool. I love the sort of Venus flytrap or Little Shop of Horrors sort of inspired. Maybe not the actual inspiration, but it certainly evokes that to some degree. Venus flytrap sort of heads on this sort of sentient plant here. I think it's really, really cool. I think it's a great choice too to use some of the, is it called the Overlord Dragon? I think it is. It's a very recent Ninjago set. I'll show you some pictures of it. Using those dragon head pieces as the plant heads that have kind of come to life and have developed teeth and can eat things or whatever. I think it's a really great part use. There is something about them that almost does look a little bit like some sort of, I don't know, plant or rose. I don't quite know how to describe that specifically, but it works stunningly well as that sort of like mix between plant life and a sort of more organic creature in that sense as well. It's really cool. I don't actually know what some of these plastic pieces are, these sort of translucent pink and almost that sort of like translucent spring green sort of like decorations underneath the head are. That's almost sort of looks like kind of like flower petals to some degree. I don't know what those pieces are. I tried to look it up. I tried to look at like the comments on the posts and stuff. I couldn't see anything. But I imagine that they're sort of maybe friends pieces. They could even be kind of like cloth elements or other sort of pieces like that. I don't know. If anyone knows, I'd be very happy to hear because I honestly don't know. But it works really well. And I think just as a general note, it's really important to sort of study your pieces and look around at some of those more interesting sets and see if you can put some of those pieces to use, because sometimes the weirder and wonderful stuff can really work to your advantage on something like this. And I'll go into a bit more detail with that sort of stuff a little bit later in the episode as well. There's a few other weird part choices on some of these other mocks, but I think that works really well and is just really creative and clever. I've always been an advocate of that, of play around with your really weird pieces because you can get some really cool results with it, that's for sure. I also quite enjoy the fact that this is to some degree using the bonsai tree format from the actual Lego bonsai tree set. You can see on the sort of base here, it's using the sort of like container that the bonsai tree came in. It's pretty much seems to be the exact same design. A little hard to tell in this one specific image here, but it also has the kind of general shape of the bonsai tree and is even using some of those black, what I like to call them, Mickey-Roni pieces, which the original bonsai tree set, of course, used in brown, but they also originally appeared in the Mickey and Minnie Lego set that you're seeing right now, and that's why I've heard that term before, but that's what I like to call them, the Mickey-Roni pieces, because it looks like macaroni, but they came on the Mickey's and Minnie set, so it's Mickey-Roni, I like the name. But still, I think, one, they're just really nice pieces. They do kind of look like, I guess the stem on like a flower or a plant of some kind. So I think it's quite fitting in that regard. But I also just like the general kind of playing of this kind of being like an alternate build for the bonsai tree to a degree. Because if you look at the instructions in that bonsai tree set, there was a few of those already existing, and a bunch of people have played around with the bonsai tree and made it into sort of different interpretations. And I think it's always just a bit of fun to take a pre-existing set and really drastically alter it, whether you just like recolor it or slightly modify it in some way, or you take the kind of base concept and really make it your own. I think whether or not that was deliberate here, I think it certainly shines, and it's certainly really, really cool. So hey, maybe it's also worth doing that. What's a set that you really like, whether it's old or new or very recent or whatever. See if you can kind of revamp it or reimagine it in your own unique fashion or unique way, very, very much like this bonsai tree set here. It's a cool idea, I think. So anyway, that's it for the sort of, general plant of this mock here, but I love, too, the little details in front of it of this little dude having a picnic. There's another little picnic blanket for you, which is just a typical piece that came on the Mini Cooper Lego set. You've just got a cloth little picnic blanket like that, so why not put it to good use like this if you have one in your collection? Regardless, the little dude here, he's, super cute. He's kind of a little chubby. He's using some of the other macaroni pieces, not the Mickey-Roni pieces, the sort of original smaller ones, which are sort of colloquially called macaroni pieces because they look like macaroni. What do you want? but using those as little arms as he's sort of squealing as the plant tries to eat him. And just his kind of general body shape and the big old eyes and the little mouth that he's got there. He's adorable. He's really cool. I love him a lot there. But yeah, I love the little sort of storytelling of this. Of a dude having a picnic and he freaks out because there's a sentient plant trying to eat him as he's trying to eat himself, you know? So again, a unique take on the theme is sort of that food within food to some degree, or multiple things trying to eat stuff, you know? I think it's really creative and really clever. I also just noticed another detail here, the choice to use some of those Ninjago snake pieces in purple as the tongues on the Venus flytrap heads. That's really, really cool. I like that a lot. Very nice little part use there. But yeah, in general, a fantastic mock. It's using some pieces in some phenomenal ways, and overall, it's really cool. So, love your work. Next mock now. This is by Buttloaf Builds, and this is called Naki. So what I like about this is that it's a lot more sort of subtle take on the theme. Just the idea of building a really cool looking kind of dinosaur thing, or kind of maybe it's a crocodile. I don't fully know. It doesn't say in the description that it can be whatever you want it to be. Maybe it's neither. Who knows? Still, I love the idea that he's just got him chomping down on something there, which I would argue is probably a person. I saw that as like a leg or something. Could be many things. But I don't know. I think that's just a fun concept too. If you are building some kind of beast or monster, why not have it eating something? That's just a fun little detail that you could add or introduce that just, takes the mock up another level, makes it a little bit cooler, a little bit more fun. And I think that's just a great way to approach this theme here. And speaking of a great way to approach this theme, I love the idea of when you photograph this, you don't actually have to build the entire thing. You just kind of cut the photo off and move it to sort of the side of the frame there. And you can kind of cheat it. So if you are entering a contest or doing whatever, you don't have to build this massive thing with the limited time that you might have to build it in. You can kind of cheat the shot in some way. I think it's clever. I think it's unique. And I think it's just a smart thing to do in general with contests, but also something you could do yourself just with whatever it is that you're building. If you have a very large concept in mind, there's little photography tricks and things you could do to really sell it, even though you're not actually building the entire thing. It's like a lot of movie sets. They don't always build an entire town. They'll just build the stuff that you only see on screen, which is, the facades of buildings, or, just sort of little hints of a ship in the background or something, and you only see one side of it, so they don't need to build the other side, Can you do that sort of stuff with the mocks that you're making? It's up to you. You got to have a cheeky think and see what you can come up with there. But onto the actual build itself, I love the general mouth design here, using some flex tube and sort of inserting all those different Exoforce like hand robot pieces there to form the general shape of the mouth, but also allowing it to have the teeth kind of flow down as well. I think that's a very solid, very nice looking design, and it just looks really cool. I also quite enjoyed the belly there, which looks to be a cockpit piece that comes on like the Slave 1 ship. It also comes on a few different things, actually, now that I think about it. It's a pretty semi-common kind of cockpit piece there. And I think it looks really cool. Just a nice way to sort of fill out the belly there. But I like the fact that it's sort of slightly translucent as well. And you can kind of sort of see inside it to some degree. Ari looks like he's kind of put in a few different little like kind of guts and different things in there, which might be him kind of digesting the food. I don't know. I think it's a really creative, clever idea. And just a nice little part use as well. Another little part uses too, like the Captain Phasma torso piece there, just to kind of give it a bit of nice shaping there and stuff. I think it's really nice. I think it's really nice indeed. So yeah, I think a really solid, awesome take on the theme here. Looks swell. Let's move on to the next mock now, which is the last mock in this episode. This is by Joxon, and this is called Date Night. So, of course, this is based off the logic that when a male praying mantis and a female praying mantis love each other very much, and they decide to make a baby, the female eats the male, because, I don't know, that's weird, but that's what they do. That's nature. And so I like the fact that Joxon has sort of epitomized this in Bionicle form. Well, I don't think they specifically eat the male, they more just sort of bite their head off, which, again, I don't know, they do what they want, I guess. But still, it happens, and so I like that, and very creative take on the food idea, and I love the fact that he's built this really awesome praying mantis head, by the way, which he appears to be using some like crazy slipper pieces from like some Scala or Belleville like figures and different things, and even using some of the Krana elements as well to sort of give the general shape of it, and even some of the texture of it as well. It's really, really cool. And I love the fact that he's put it on like a little literal Lego dish, much like a plate of food there, and styled it with some of the sort of, greenery and like a tomato and stuff like that. It's just a really fun, creative idea, and a great little sort of setup for it as well. The actual praying mantis itself, I think, is really well designed. I love the fact that he's using a lot of these different tail element pieces in lime there. And it kind of really matches how you would typically see a praying mantis's limbs. It's very bug-like, it's very fitting. And I like the way that he sort of posed it too. It looks like they are just getting ready to dive into the food there. It's really, really fun. I like the little table accessory as well. The candle design is stunning. I think it's a brilliant little candle design. But I also like the fact that he's put a little piece of cloth down there, which I have tried to research that. I also don't know what that's from. But through my research, I discovered some other cool cloth elements that you could obtain yourself. Of course, there's a lot of weird themes like Scala, like I mentioned before, that naturally had a lot of cloth elements in the set, whether that's on the actual like figures or you would just get other like cloth stuff for beds or all sorts of weird things. So look into your Scala stuff. It's not always the cheapest thing, but you might have some lying around, who knows. But also some, Belleville sets as well. And I've found some of these on Bricklink as I was trying to research it. So here's an old Belleville set here, which comes with this almost sort of like Persian rug of sorts. And you get this, this is the actual set originally. It sort of uses sort of like a tarp of sorts. But hey, you could easily use something very similar to that in a sort of semi-similar context. But on a more sort of modern set, this apparently came out in 2018. This is a sort of like castle accessory pack is what it was called. It was a Disney princessy sort of like Friends style set. And you got this really funky, weird piece in there, which kind of looks like a bit of a sort of cloth or carpet, I suppose you could say. So again, not the exact piece that he used, but something certainly similar. So if you wanted to do something in a similar vein, that's the sort of piece that you could maybe approach and do it with, for sure. So yeah, I think this is a fantastic, really fun concept and some really fun little character designs and in general, just a really creative take on the theme. It looks really, really cool. So that's it for this episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series, this BioCup themed episode. Hopefully you enjoyed, and if you did, by all means, check the links in the description below where you can check out some of the other mocks that these builders have made and you can see some more wonderful stuff. Some other stuff that's in the description below is links to my own social media, whether that's my Patreon, which gives you, access to additional content from me over there, my podcast, little personal Patreon podcast, the personal Discord server, all sorts of stuff like that. Or you can take a look and see some of my other social media, some of the other builds that I'm building myself, other stuff that I've got going on over there. Or in the description below, you can see the submission email. So if you want to see some of your own mocks on the show, that's the email to email me on. It's also on your screen right now. You just send me whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. You can send me as many pictures or as few pictures, as much information or as little information as you want. It's up to you. And one day, I'll do my best to feature it on the show. But of course, I got a lot of submissions to work through, so your patience is key. Pretty please. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Happy building, and bye for now.